It's not a normal world, it's Taskmaster World. Welcome to Taskmaster World of Podcast. Now, for all you visual viewers, yes, watch it rather than listen. You can see my beautiful face, and you can always see my guest's beautiful face. Anyway, so you might have noticed that I've got new glasses that anti-glare. No, not anti-glare, anti-glare. Oh, you get it now. Oh, yes, the worst joke you've ever heard. Well done. So you should be able to see my beautiful eyes, not the whole screen reflected onto me, so like I'm dead on the inside, which I'm perfectly not. But we're back talking about Taskmaster New Zealand. But before we talk about the lineup of the new series, which we'll do in another video, we're going all the way back to Series 1. Now, today I'm joined by a very special guest. He's best known as a New Zealand comedian, and he's best known for having a brother who was also on the same series, I've also interviewed. It's one and only Guy Williams!
Kia ora. How's it going?
Going all right. So, let's start at the very beginning. The Billy Andrews once said,
It's a very good place to start.
but how did you get into this industry we called comedy? Ha-ha!
How did I get into it? I've got a good origin story, actually. I had a good friend at university who I kind of wanted to date. It was a female friend, and she invited me to a comedy show, and I thought it was a date. And then when I got there, luckily I didn't bring any flowers or anything like that, because there was also about 8 other people who were invited as well. I didn't know. I was the only person invited. I, for some reason, thought there was only 2 people going. And turns out we were there as like a bring-along crowd to support her brother, who was trying comedy for the first time. So I was crestfallen. I was heartbroken. It was genuinely kind of awkward, but luckily I didn't I bottled it up. I kept it professional. And I went into the show and had the best night of my life, and started going back to the comedy club every week after that. And then that's how I got addicted to comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you not regretted doing that? Have you enjoyed this journey through comedy?
Yeah, man, it's a really lovely job. Like, it's not perfect. There's always little flaws, but I think it's going to be one of the best jobs in the world. It's not quite as good as professional surfer or chess player or something like that, or concert pianist, but it's a lot easier than those skills. Like if you're like me and you have no actual talent, comedy is the thing to do, I reckon.
Yeah. And when you perform in your comedy, do you write your ideas down, or do you just one of those people who walk on as I say the first thing that pops in their head?
I think everyone writes their ideas down. Have you met someone who says they walk on and say the first thing that pops into their head?
Well, I don't know how well you're up to date with with British comedians, but there's a bloke called Billy Connolly who has been doing this. Yeah. Well, he walks on and says whatever he likes and never remembers what he said.
Was that a joke there?
No, it's what he does. He walks on, says whatever.
No. You just did a good joke, because you said, I don't know how well up to date you are with British comedians, and I personally might not know all the latest people on the latest series of Taskmaster UK. So you know a lot of comedians that I don't know. But you said, I don't know how well up to date you are with British comedians, and then named the most famous comedian, one of the most famous comedians of all time. It's like saying, I don't know how familiar you are with New Zealand comedians, but there's a comedian called a bunch of comedians called Fly the Conchords. Don't know if you've heard of them. I assume you've probably heard of them. You might not have. I mean, they're not as well known as Billy Connolly, but they're our most famous.
Well, I didn't realise I had said that. Well, we're off to a good start.
I think we are. Here's a great thing I learned about comedy, Tom, is that the more it goes wrong, the better. And I think those are some of the funniest bits, is when it's a train wreck. That's when we really get cooking on the Taskmaster World podcast.
Yeah. But Billy Connolly, he said once he was retiring from comedy. And then there's a TV channel in the UK that is only in the UK because they just want to repeat only Fools and Horses. But, which might be a good thing, might not be, depending on who you ask and what day it is. But he been recommissioned for a series about his life, even though he was on ITV, another channel, saying I'm retiring from comedy, and now he's doing comedy again.
Yeah, well, I think what you find is that Billy Connolly is not a reliable source of information. Great comedian, but also what's known in the industry as, we have a term for it, it's called a liar. All right. And I can guarantee you, Billy Connolly writes some of his ideas down. And I guarantee you that he definitely retiring with some sort of either publicity stunt or moment of old age where he'd forgotten he retired. But that sounds coldly calculated, I think.
Well, if I don't know if it's internationally, but if you spend, I think, £60, you can get a masterclass with Billy Connolly on BBC Masterpiece, which is like masterclass but for the BBC.
Have you done it?
No, because it's 60 quid, and I don't know how good of a source it is because it looks in the adverts of him just sat there.
Yeah, it can be tricky. Like if they also have that thing. There's BBC Masterclass, and then there's another one done in America, and it's like if the talent is if Billy Connolly's into it, it'll be amazing because obviously he's a legendary comedian and has learned so much amazing, so many tricks about comedy and stuff like that. So he'd have such an interesting perspective. But on the flip side, it could be a hard watch. I'm not sure. I'm interested. I want to hear a review. Maybe I'll go online and find out what people think because I would be interested in seeing that. I do quite enjoy Billy Connolly from time to time.
And so moving, so I don't think he'll ever do Taskmaster. So moving on, because moving back to because he lives in Florida and he's really old, so I don't think he's able because of his Parkinson's as well. I don't think he's able to do as much. But with the UK version, did you ever watch that? Because I know it's available on TVNZ over there, but did you ever watch it?
Not really. I was familiar with it, and then my good friend Rose Matafeo was on it, so I watched one or two episodes of her. I was like, oh, this is an interesting show, and then kind of like it was like on my list of things to watch, and then I went on it. So I went on it with ignorance, and I meant to go, hey, I'll watch some episodes beforehand to get more of a vibe of like what the show is, and I didn't. I didn't do the easiest homework in the world, and my thinking was, oh my god, what I'll do is I'll be the one who doesn't know about Taskmaster on the Taskmaster show. But then when I got there, I don't know if anyone's seen New Zealand season 1. There was 2 idiots on the show who were somehow more ignorant than me because I'd seen like 1 or 2 episodes with Rose on it, so I was vaguely aware of what the show was. I can tell you right now that Mel and Sami definitely didn't know what the show was. They had at least spoken to the producers and vaguely was aware of what she was doing, but I guarantee she'd never seen it. And I'll tell you right now that Lee Hart, the older man on the show, he has not seen Taskmaster, I reckon, probably ever. I reckon he hasn't seen Taskmaster since he's been on it. I don't think he knew what Taskmaster was before he was on it. And I think if you ask him now what Taskmaster was, I know he had a good time. I turns out to me I was one of the most knowledgeable ones on this show in New Zealand. Hadn't seen Taskmaster.
Well, I'll trust you on this because I have interviewed Lee Hart, and if memory serves me right, he had seen a little bit of it.
No, he was lying to you. I'll tell you about. He's using the Billy Connolly technique of lying. I sat next to him, man. That guy had no. I had to explain to him like, well, it wasn't quite as bad as getting to the first ad break and him going, "What's going on?" But the number of times he had no clue what was happening or what like, I don't think has there ever been anyone worse at prize tasks than him. Like he literally was just out the back of his car and pretending that was a prize task, you know.
I mean, there has been terrible price tags in every version of the show around the world, but I think Lee was the worst. But I interviewed Sam Smith, not the singer, the fantastic writer, and we had discussed a habit of yours. Why did you decide to stand up so much?
Yeah, it was controversial, I admit. Can I explain it? Because I didn't know that it was derided or something like that. So maybe I've done this in retrospect, but I didn't realize that people were hating me for it. Angela Draven, another contestant, told me there was a place called Taskmaster Reddit, and she's like, and they hate you on there. Which is pretty funny because I think of like there's some Reddits that are really wholesome, you know, like there'll be like, you know, whether it be like Disneyland Reddit or like Cute Pets Reddit, where it's really wholesome and nice. But I tell you what, Taskmaster Reddit was. I went on there thinking, oh, what a lovely place, and it was not lovely. They hated me. I'm going to be one of the most hated Taskmaster contestants of all time, and I think maybe I've come up with this in retrospect, but I think I've got a pretty good defense for my constant standing up. Right, we were the first season in New Zealand, so it was before Taskmaster was well known, and I mean, sure, it was well known in New Zealand, but like the crowds that came along, I work for the company that makes Taskmaster New Zealand. My brother is the Taskmaster assistant. I had a lot more skin in the game than your normal Taskmaster. I wasn't just showing up to a random studio and shooting. I was kind of aware of like the nerves and the pressure that goes into launching season 1.
Yeah.
The crowds were small. They were people that didn't necessarily love Taskmaster. Like now, when you Taskmaster New Zealand, Taskmaster fans snap up the tickets and they go within a second. Season 1, 80, 90 people in the crowd, which is a very small crowd for a comedy gig. And they were very quiet, okay? So they didn't seem to really care if there was a result, whether it was a win or a loss on screen. They didn't really seem to cheer or boo if something amazing had happened on screen. So I was constantly I come from a background of comedy warm-up. I was constantly trying to G up the crowd and get them to feel something. Even if it's booze, I was constantly like, crowd, wait, or this show is going to get cancelled after one season. So I was constantly just trying to lift the audience and create a bit of a vibe. And I think I helped. Maybe I didn't ask someone else. Maybe I hindered. I'm not sure. But I tried to get them something to feel something. Unfortunately, what they felt was resentment towards me.
Well, as you've been saying there that you think you're the most hated contestant, if you tweet Jack Bernhardt, sorry if I mispronounced it, I've previously interviewed, not the other day. He does a lot of Taskmaster stats, so he'll have the information written down for me. So if you ask him, he'll definitely know if you are labelled the most hated contestant, which I don't agree with, but I know some people disagree with you standing up all the time. But, well, I mean, Sam Smith had an opinion on that. He sort of had a good opinion, but he understood where the downside was to it.
What was his opinion?
Well, I can't initially remember because it was quite a few years ago. Well, I say a few years, it was like 2 years ago. But he seemed to be a little bit confused because he didn't understand enough of why you was done up so much, and he got the fans thing, but he thought, you were a very good contestant, so you stand up all the time, just sort of weighed up with the fact you were like very, I can't say very good at the task because you weren't always good at all of them, but you were very likable, like I had.
Oh no, Tom, you're winning me over, mate. You're warming my heart. Thank you so much. But you're welcome. You're welcome to be critical as well. I think I was a bit of a mixed bag, and I did finish last, which maybe maybe is a strong argument for me being one of the worst contestants.
Well, in the UK version, Nish Kumar, who is I think he's really good friends with Rose. I think that's how come I remember hearing some story of him watching Taskmaster at Rose's house, but he is labelled one of the worst contestants because he failed every task. He never won an episode. He never won 5 points. He was a lone wolf.
Yeah, I think I was hard done by. And this is another reason why I was very hated, and I think understandably, but I could not justify the Taskmaster's rulings. I think I was hard done by many times, and I demand a recount because I thought a lot of times I think I did a really good one, and I still finished last, and I was like, I'm going to fight this.
And not only were you a contestant, and it's an interesting dynamic this, because from my knowledge, I don't think this has ever happened where the assistant and one of the contestants are related. But I know what it's, well, I don't know it in a entertainment sense. So it's like working with your brother, because I have a brother of my own. But what was it like working with your brother? Was it like a love-hate relationship, or were you like playing it up for comedy?
Yeah, I mean, a bit of both. Like, it's definitely weird. Are we the first time brothers have appeared on Taskmaster together? That's pretty cool.
I think so. From my knowledge, I might not be correct now, but from what I remember, I think you are.
We also have a sister who does comedy. She's going for the Billy T Award this year, which is a big deal in New Zealand. So we're really stoked that we have a weird family of 3 comedians. I don't know what our parents stuffed up pretty bad, obviously. It was definitely weird doing it with my brother. There was 2 elements there. The first and most obvious element is that I was worried about how the show was going to go for his sake, and I shouldn't have been. He's very talented in his own right. He can do whatever he wants. But, like I kind of had this weird extra level of connection where it was season 1. I wasn't sure how Taskmaster was going to go. I thought it was going to get blowback. It turns out we did not need to worry because Taskmaster fans embraced it. But I thought, a lot of Kiwis especially love to be like, oh, it's not as good as the UK. So I thought that would be a response. And I also thought I don't know, and if people would struggle to find it, I'm not sure. But I didn't know that Taskmaster New Zealand was going to last more than 1 season. So I was a little bit nervous from that perspective. I wanted to do a good job. And the other thing that was nerve-wracking was just I don't know, there's a lot of embarrassing things you do in comedy that you maybe don't want your direct relatives to see. But of course, Paul was there for all of it.
And so you mentioned that you have a sister that's also in comedy. Now, I don't know if she's that type of person that would do it, but would she ever consider doing Taskmaster New Zealand?
She'd love to, yeah.
Because I do think that'll be like really funny if the whole of the Williams have been on Taskmaster New Zealand. That'd just be incredible.
It'd be amazing. Get our mum on it, get our dad on it. Have you ever done Taskmaster with non-comedians?
Yes. Now, in the UK, we have comedians and comedy actors, so they've got the comedy show. But on New Year's, since it moved to a different channel, on New Year's Day, they have a special where it's like non-comedians. It's like a radio presenter, a para-athlete, an actor, or a judge on a talent show. And they have like 1 episode to do a bunch of tasks.
That is my nightmare. That sounds horrific. Is it any good?
It's quite good because they had certain people that everyone wanted on it, but they were upset because they were only on it for 1 episode rather than a whole series.
I get it. Would I have heard of these celebrities? What sort of people are people that people are like, get them on for the whole series?
Let's see. Let's see. There's Ryland Clark, who's
that?
He did X Factor UK.
Oh yeah, I'm vaguely familiar.
He's famous for crying, having a very big breakdown. There's
wait. So these like masochistic fans are like, hey, let's get on this man who's on the edge and let's try and break him.
No. It's because he was in judges' houses on X Factor UK and he had got through and he was really happy about it, but he'd over dramatically cried. And then
I'll tell you what. If you want to know what my sister would be like on Taskmaster, that's what she would be like. She'd be highs and lows, man. She's got ADD and she's up and down and up and down. And she'd be like celebrating one moment and crying the next.
And then we also had, I don't know if you know her, but I can't remember her name, but she played Claire, I think her character was called, in Derry Girls. I don't know if you've ever seen Derry Girls. But
yes.
The small blonde lady. Well, she was really good on it. And we had a singer who I never heard of called Self-Esteem.
Yeah. So with some of these people, it might not be Taskmaster's fault, but they might have asked them and they said, I can't commit to, the 10 days shooting that Taskmaster films this year, but I can do the one-off special. It could be something like that. But what I was going to throw out there is I want to see normal people do Taskmaster. Like comedians are good, but there's something kind of disingenuous about comedians. Like, right? It's like an act. You're not seeing a real person. Whereas I would love to see like my dad do it or my mum do it or like just some normal people. It would be harder, obviously, because they wouldn't be able to, like, comedians can often like, whip off jokes pretty quick and like turn situations funny. Whereas normal people, like, you've got to more like get into the nuance of it. But I genuinely think a season of Taskmaster with just like some well-chosen real people, they've got to be quite talkative, obviously, because you need a lot of footage to edit down. But I reckon a season with normal, real New Zealanders or normal British people who aren't comedians or aren't actors could be superb. It could also be a disaster. So, don't quote me, if it financially bankrupts the company?
Well, funnily enough, in the UK, there is something called Taskmaster Junior, where a bunch of ordinary kids compete in different rounds. So it's instead of having the same kids every week, it's different kids, and then all the winners from each round get to compete in a grand final. So it's got different hosts. So Rose Mattertail's the Taskmaster, and Mike Wozniak, who was very good and won the first ever edition in Edinburgh and won. I didn't win his series. Is the assistant, and it's like regular average kids from the ages of 9 to 11 competing to become the junior Taskmaster champion.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh, that's really cool. I can't wait to not watch that. No, I'm joking. I can't wait to see that. I'm so stoked for Rose as well. That's a wonderful concept for a show. I used to watch kids say the dumbest things when I was a kid.
So going back to you, what was your favourite task that you filmed? This is a question that I ask, and some people, Paul Ego, lost the memory of everything. But what was your favourite task that didn't make it to air that you did?
Oh no, that's an unfair question. I was like, yeah, Paul Ego, what an idiot, he can't remember. And then I was like, oh no, I can't. It was 3 years ago, so I can't really remember. I don't remember any. I don't know how many we filmed that didn't make it to air, but I didn't have any. I didn't have any favorites that didn't make it to air. I had a least favorite that did make it to air. Should I mention that?
Go on, do tell.
Apparently, every season. So I knew nothing about Taskmaster, which I mean, the year we did it, Brynley Stent saved the show because she was the only one. So we had me. I'd seen like 1 or 2 episodes with Rose in it. We had Mel and Sami, who I can see none or close to no episodes. Maybe watch the YouTube video of 3 minutes of footage. We had Lee Hart, who wasn't even aware of what the show was called. He would probably call it Master Task, And then we had Angela Dravid, who was vaguely aware and mildly competent. But the only person who actually knew Taskmaster from season 1 New Zealand was Brynley Stent. And she saved the show. And I know this for a fact because I've spoken to the people behind the scenes. She was the only one who knew that there was little tricks and traps and stuff like that. So a lot of the tasks or some of the tasks can be as you would know, are little games where it's a play on words or it's a trick. And but we all played it straight up. The 4 of us, Angela, me, Lee, and Madeline, we all just did it and did not fall for the trick. And so the task would have been useless. It would have seemed terrible if it wasn't for that kicker at the end, which is Brynley, and she was the only one who managed to figure out a lot of the tasks. And I mean, it was just a New Zealand Taskmaster, got to get off the ground. A more competent comedian than us would have probably have asked around and gone, hey, what are some things about Taskmaster? Or they could have told us, they could have given us an information pack going, hey, watch out for tricks. But we had very trusting, loving, and believing people that we didn't know that the Taskmaster would be so evil as to try and pull the wool over our eyes. That was horrible. One of the worst tricks, so that was a long setup to get to. One of the worst tricks, which I don't know about and I resent to this day, was they do a trick where they give a task to one person that no one else does.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that Taskmaster wasn't always the most fun thing to film. It's quite weird where you go into this weird house and you're there for and I mean, I'm probably saying this to Taskmaster fans, so they're probably like, God, you're crazy. But think about this as a performer. You go to this weird house, you do these tasks, no one reacts positively or negatively. You can't stand up and rack up the audience to go boo me or give me something. I want to feel alive. And then you just do this weird thing. You get naked in a tree in front of your own brother who has to hold your underwear. And then you just walk the walk of shame back to your weird dressing room or whatever and just think about the consequences of your actions. It's absolutely horrific, right? And you do a full day of that, you start going crazy. You start losing faith in your own abilities, you really start going what am I doing? Is this going to be horrible? Am I going to be the worst contestant ever? To be fair, I should have been more worried about that because I was there. And, some days were great, but some days were kind of a bit rough. And we got to the end of a long, rough day. This is 10.5 hours of filming. And they've got one last test, and it was just do NCA level 1 mathematics, which for people in the UK would be do you call it A levels? It would be your A levels when you're 15. Does that sound right?
Well, hey, you do when you're in year 11, so let's say 15, 16, that's
Yeah.
E's, and then you can go on to do your A levels afterwards. So A levels is like 17 to like 18.
Okay. Okay. So what was it called? What's your exam you do when you're 15?
GCSEs.
GCSEs. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, it was year 11 when I was there at school as well. So when I got to year 11 or the fifth form, they told me, you've got to do a math test, and that's a nightmare. That's like one of my weakest subjects. But I was fine at maths, so I was competent. And then they gave me NCA level 1 maths and said, do it, which is a funny joke, right?
Yeah.
But I was up for it. I was like, let's do it. This is kind of an interesting challenge. And I sat down to do it, and it was hard. It was really hard. And I did question 1, and I didn't have a clue. It was algebra, rearranging. And I'm like, I know there are rules here that I have forgotten. So I skipped question 2. Question 2 was even harder. Question 3 was even harder. It was brutal, and I was just stuck there. It was the end of the day, and I wasn't happy about it. Like, it was genuinely quite humiliating. And when I left, the only thing I could think was, oh, I can't wait to see what the other contestants did. Am I like stupid, or is this? And then when I get back to the studio, what you got to remember is like, it turns out I was the only one who did that. And I was genuinely quite that, because I was like, I don't get the satisfaction of seeing like someone do it correctly or feel like I'm an idiot. I still don't know to this day if it was easy or hard, because I was the only one who gave it a try. But what really pissed me off is I spoke to the director later, and the director explains that it wasn't even it wasn't even the test from my year 11. What it was they'd got multiple tests and they'd joined them together. So question 1 was from one test, question 2 was from another. And if you think about math, often you can, I don't know if you've ever done exams, but sometimes you can learn from the next question how to do the question before. You can pick up information. I couldn't even do that because none of the questions were connected. So I left that day feeling like the stupidest man in the world. And I don't even know if I was or not, because it wasn't even a fair test. So I want to write a letter to the head of Taskmaster UK, Alex Horn, or whoever that is, and say, I demand a reset of the year 11 math test, because not only was that psychological torture at the end of a very long, painful day, but also it was not a fair test. And the people watching on the TV think I'm an idiot, which I am, but I don't think I'm that big an idiot, and I demand a recount.
That's just fantastic. Now, not only have you done Taskmaster New Zealand, you've also done a selection of other things. Now, one of the things I'm most intrigued about the process behind it is, what was it like being the narrator? And you ready for this? The narrator on Come Dine With Me New Zealand.
I enjoyed it. I really loved it. And there's a bit of a story behind that. But yeah, the show was cancelled after 1 season. It's a shame, because I thought it was really good. Our show wasn't quite as wholesome as the UK one. The production company that made that here in New Zealand, they kind of got offcuts from like other shows. So we have a show called The Block, like a home renovation show, or like The Bachelor. So they kind of got people who are already kind of like a bit kooky or a bit out there. And I kind of so it didn't quite have the same heart as the British one, but it was very funny. Yeah. But what I don't know what time it is on the UK. It's in New Zealand. I was in Japan, and they called me up and they go, "Do you want to host the show?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that. That'd be great." And I kind of wasn't aware of, back home in New Zealand, there was a storm brewing because a beloved current affairs show was being cancelled. And I remember calling out from Japan, like having a lovely time, and going, "Hey, just to check, we're not replacing that beloved current affairs show, are we?" And they said, no, it's all fine. And then, of course, we made the show. We worked hard on it. I think it was really good. I thought it was a really funny show. Maybe not as good as the UK one, but it was our first season. Give us a break. And it went to air, and it was put instead of this beloved, 15-year running, beloved, fighting for justice current affairs show. It was replaced with Come Dine With Me New Zealand, narrated by me, and it backfired really bad, because it meant all the headlines was Guy Williams in a stupid show replaces Come Dine With Me New Zealand. And it was honestly one of the low points of my career, having to deal with that backlash and everyone thinking it was somehow related to me or my fault. And it was really I still have like a lot of resentment towards that because I think Taskmaster New Zealand was a good show that put in a proper time slot with a proper chance would have probably succeeded and still be going, 4 or 5 years later. And B, that my name took a hit when I was told explicitly that I wouldn't be replacing a beloved current affairs host. And I was. It was genuinely quite crushing. And I like that current affairs host, and I like the show and the journalism he did. So for me to be part of that shitstorm was, it was probably one of the low points of my career. Genuinely, yeah.
And I'm gonna now give you some positivity that
Thanks, man. Build me back up.
so most versions of Come Die With Me. So the UK version is still going on, and whether or not it should still be going on, that's another question for another day. But most versions of the show out of the UK have been cancelled after one series. So it's an issue across the world. So Argentina, Spain, Japan, Korea, they've all tried it and it's failed. And it might not, it's not because of anyone that does the voiceover. It might be because of the cast that you get for the first series might not gel as well as you would do. So we've had like most famous moments of like people getting angry over losing, or Dave Lamb was a comedy actor to begin with, so it's like, so having a comedian doing the voiceover works, but in some countries it's the cast that are on the show rather than the people that are working, etc. So it's like the people that are doing the cooking might not be up to scratch.
No. I definitely wouldn't blame the cookers. I think they did a great job. I think it was definitely not as wholesome as the British one, but I'd say that I think the show rated well and could have been okay. But yeah, I don't think it was anyone's fault. It was the bizarre scheduling situation. I blame the schedulers.
Yeah, well, I mean that it does happen quite a lot because it's weird when they're like in the UK at the moment we've got 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, aired one episode of the new series like 4 months ago, and then never aired another episode since. And then they had
Oh wow.
another show in its place, but never aired the final episode of that series because they were airing something else instead. And they're not going to go back to them because they've got no room in the schedule to go back to it.
It's really bizarre because we have online streaming now. Just whack it online and the fans can watch it there. Crazy.
Yeah. And not only have you done Come Die With Me, you've also done a program that is beloved, I think. 'Cause I'm not up to date with the fans of this area, so I'm going to say it's beloved. It's informative on my end. It's what's it like working on New Zealand today?
Oh, it's awesome, man. I just got back. For people who don't know, New Zealand Today is my show that I specifically make. It's not a format. It'd be similar to like a news correspondent, maybe on the Daily Show, or do you still have the MASH report over there in the UK? Is that sort of thing with Nishkuma?
That just got cancelled like last year. It got cancelled by the BBC, then came back, then he left, and then Rachel Paris took over, and then it got cancelled again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, it's like the Daily Show in America. People would know that with Jon Stewart or who took over from Jon Stewart?
Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah. Yeah, where they have like correspondents go out and do kind of like faux news stories, which are kind of true, kind of fake. And New Zealand Today, we just tell real stories from around New Zealand in kind of a funny way. I like to think of it as like a kind of bogan country calendar. Okay, none of these references are going to make any sense to you. But like, yeah, just weird stories from around New Zealand. You know how in the newspaper you might have weird things that have happened around the country. We normally report on those. We occasionally cover some like, maybe more mainstream stories as well. But I just do weird stories, funny little stories from around New Zealand in the style of journalism. And it's the best. Just got back from filming a new season late last night. So I'm so excited. Like I often think when I'm filming, I was like, this is the most fun I can have. And I really love the show. It's on YouTube if anyone in the UK wants to watch some of the stories. It's called New Zealand Today. My name's Guy Williams. And I would recommend it because it's probably the best thing I've ever done. If you like me on Taskmaster, which you probably didn't, then I was even better than that.
And so, because you said it was yours, do you own the rights to this? So could you sell the rights to, like, let's say, for instance, Comedy Central UK to air the full episode in the UK? Do you have the rights, or does someone else have the rights?
Tom, you should be my agent. Like, I'm quite interested in how interested you are in the back end of television. But yeah, man, if you can get to a South, you can become one of my new agents. You get promoting it to those UK people and go. You can't even do 8 out of 10 cats correctly. You've cancelled, some great shows like the Mash Report. We need some good content here in the UK because it's all Coronation Street and football 24/7. I actually quite enjoy the football. We need some good content. New Zealand Today is I think, a funny show, a little bit interesting. And I've actually had British people who have hit me up here in New Zealand and said the reason they came to do the OE or study abroad in New Zealand is because of New Zealand Today, which
Wow.
is so funny because it doesn't necessarily portray New Zealand in the best light. Like it makes New Zealand look like quite a crazy place, which it is. It is quite a crazy place. So I think it's so funny that people would choose to come here after seeing the show, but I love it. I wouldn't recommend it, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it gets available in the UK full episode, not just small clips on YouTube, because I can't let.
Oh yeah, no. Well, it's so an episode is just 2 of those clips. So we have quite a lot. We have quite a lot on YouTube. If you're through that already, Tom Mason, you're fiend, and you need to slow down because we're making them as fast as we can. But there's quite a lot on YouTube to get this started. But you're right. But thank you for watching it. That really means a lot. And also cheers for having me on this podcast. Taskmaster was a dark time in my life, so it's nice to be able to talk to someone about it. It's a therapy.
And when you're walking down the street, like after you see the cartoon artwork, do you get recognised by the lovely people of New Zealand?
Yeah. Most people recognize me for other things that I've done. I was on a show called John on Ben, which is a little bit like Ant and Dec, I guess. It doesn't sound good, but it was pretty good for many years. So I get recognized for that or for New Zealand Today generally, but occasionally Taskmaster fans as well, which is really nice too. Shout out to the what are Taskmaster fans called? Do they have a name or something like that?
No, they haven't got a name yet. We need to think of one, but there isn't one yet.
Would you like to be on Would you like to be on Taskmaster? Was that a dream of yours?
I mean, if I become famous enough, you have to. I think you have to be a certain level of fame because not any old Tom, Dick, and Harry are getting on it these days. I mean,
well, I believe in you. If you want a letter of recommendation, I'll be like Tom Mason. That gag you had about, I don't know how up to date you are with British comedians, but we've got a comedian over here called Billy Connolly. That was good gear. That was very funny.
And so you were really good on the series. Now in the UK, it's been
Was I?
you were. We'll get on to that in a few seconds. In the UK, it's been confirmed by many people that each series have like WhatsApp chats, or they all went on holiday together, or
What?
yeah, or they done this, that, the other. So with your series, do you lot? I know the joke of New Zealand comedians being a small circuit, but do you all still stay? Are you in a certain Taskmaster WhatsApp group chat where you talk to each other and catch up with each other together?
No, we all hate each other and resent each other to this day. I resent Angela for winning the Taskmaster trophy, and if I see her, I turn away. I walk in the other direction. No, we're a weird year because we had Lee and Madeline, and I don't want to blame them, but it's 100% their fault. So we often had we would watch it together. It'd be me, Angela, and Brindley, and a couple of other friends, Laura Daniel, from season 3. She would be there as well, and maybe my brother Paul. But Madeline and Lee had children and lives, and they did not give a shit. So as a result, it was kind of only me, Angela, and Brindley who hung out, and we're still friends. And I'm still friends with Lee and Mads as well, but we don't stick together as a Taskmaster unit specifically. Me, Brent, and Angela were on John on Ben before we were on Taskmaster anyway. So our roots, they go deep, man, deeper than these superficial, weird Taskmaster hangouts. I'll tell you what, we're true friends since day one.
Yeah, and I don't think Taskmaster will ever leave you. One, because you're on the show, and two, because you're related to the Taskmaster's assistant, who who I don't think, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't think he had turned up, and I might be wrong with this, to the Taskmaster party. Alex Horn went to, I think, France, don't quote me on that, where all the Taskmasters and some of the assistants, not all of them, but some of them, all got together and had a massive duck and had a massive party together.
Wow.
Yeah.
My greatest dream in life is that I could be in the room with all the Taskmasters and all the Taskmasters' assistants having a big party and some roast duck.
Well, not all of them spoke English. So you had Norway, you had Sweden, Finland, but you didn't obviously have the ones that no one ever wants to mention, such as Germany, because that failed after one episode. Didn't make the pilot episode. It didn't work. Alex saw within the audience, but he didn't understand what was going on because he didn't understand German. He met the cast afterwards and still had no clue what was going on. So he was a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Man, Taskmaster is an amazing show. It's like so big now.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be
crazy.
It's in Portugal, it's in Croatia, it's in Quebec.
Wow. Wait, Quebec?
Yeah,
just the city or the country of Canada?
Well, no, just because Quebec is an area of the French-speaking Canada, so it's
wow.
You could do Taskmaster Canada, like they did with Last One Laughing. They did Last One Laughing Quebec and Last One Laughing Canada, because they've done an Australian version, which they need to do a New Zealand version, which is, I don't know if you've heard of it, where comedians are in a room, they can't laugh, but they have to make each other laugh, and if you do laugh, you get a yellow card. If you laugh again, and you're out. So Rebel Wilson did the Australian version as the horseshoe, the Australian version.
Weird. Is that a good show?
It's fantastic because it was like weird because by the end they had Sam Simmons, and he had just lost his marbles and was barely wearing anything, and it was
I'm not a big fan of Sam Simmons. Yeah, okay, interesting. Okay, wow, that's really interesting. It's interesting how TV shows, it kind of freaks me out how TV shows are getting franchised all around the world. Is that not a bit weird though? It feels kind of strange to to do that. I was like, why don't countries have their own TV shows maybe? But it's cool, I guess. What's your favorite what's your favorite versions of Taskmaster?
It's UK, then New Zealand, then Sweden, then Australia, then Finland. And
okay.
For 6.
In Sweden, do they speak English or Swedish?
They speak Swedish, so I've met the Swedish Taskmaster, so I interviewed her.
Wow.
And she's very nice. I'm still trying to hunt down the Taskmaster's assistant. Well, here he is. He is David Sundin, and I'm trying to be friends with him. I'm trying to become friends with him.
Wow. Well, that's cool, man. You're a super fan, aren't you? You bloody love this stuff.
I do. So now we're going to move on to talk about Taskmaster New Zealand Series 1, Episode 7. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, that's good.
Ding, 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 ding. There we go. So now with the 7th episode, which means we're closer to the end of the first series. Now, the prize task was for I don't know how well Lee Hart was well up to date with this, because I don't think he had thought on what was going on. But it was the worst thing to show the Taskmaster. We'll get to the nutshell first. We had Brindley Stint. She sent in a video of Greg Davis yelling at Jeremy Wells. Did you recognize Greg Davis when he appeared in the studio?
Yeah, I knew Greg Davis. I knew of Greg Davis before he was on Taskmaster. I don't think that was very bad though. It wasn't that bad.
No, it was very funny because it's like there's not many versions that include the originals in it.
Yeah. Oh, so the crossover, that's the appeal. You're like all about the Taskmaster universe. Okay. What did I do? Can you remember what I did?
Yes, you had brought in one of your pillows without a pillowcase.
Yeah. Disgusting. It was like all yellow. It was gross.
What was your motivation? Did you think about it in advance, or was it the last minute?
I thought that's disgusting. You know, that's like one of my biggest secrets is that what my pillows look like when they have a pillowcase on them. They're horrific. And so I thought, that's pretty gross. I'll bring that along. That's pretty bad. How did I finish? How did I go?
Well, you didn't. Well, you didn't do too well. I think
What?
you didn't. Well, you did. You did slightly better than Brindley, because she had tried to Jeremy and remove his dignity. But we had then we had Madeline's army with 300 fossiled daddy long legs from her mother's garage.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty bad.
It's not disgusting. Some people might think it's disgusting, but I just think it's weird that there was 300.
Okay, so was that more or less disgusting than my one?
I mean, it was. I mean, having someone's pillow that looks like hasn't been washed in 4 years is a lot worse than having.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is what I'm talking about. So I'm climbing the rankings here. What did Lee Hart bring? I bet he just bought some like socks from his car or something.
He brought in a camera from the Hillary exhibition.
What was bad about that?
Well, it really made no sense to me. It might be a reference that I haven't got on.
No. Do not try and read into what that is. I'll tell you what that is right now. And that is Lee just grabbing from his car and claiming it's something more exciting than it is. So that's definitely not bad. Okay, what did Angela bring?
She had handmade this, so it was already getting off to a good start. A book of Taskmaster NZ. What it like? It was quotes of what she thinks Taskmaster NZ's gonna be like.
Yeah, okay. So of all those things, and they were like negative quotes, right?
Yeah.
So let me get you to judge this right now. Which one of those things was the worst thing to show the Taskmaster, do you think?
I think it's definitely your pillow.
Thank you. And then where did I finish? Probably like second to last or some bullshit.
I think that's more likely to be.
Yeah. So and you can see how the judging was like it was rigged against me, man. I didn't have a chance. I was like, that's just my pillow's disgusting. Everything else they bought is fine, really. Like some old dead spiders, it's pretty gross, but like like it's fine. A camera, no. A book of quotes, no. A video from the UK, definitely no. If anything, you'd be stoked to get a video from. We were all chuffed to see that as a good thing to show the Taskmaster. I should have won that task. I was robbed, and everyone's like, "Oh, guy, you suck at Taskmaster." I'm like, "No."
Well, I only think they were being harsh on you because they didn't want to show favoritism because your brother's the assistant, and it.
Hey, this has made me feel a lot better about my controversial type on Taskmaster. So I appreciate that. You're building me up.
Well, I mean, it would if you'd like really done really well. Some people then would blame you for rigging because you could bribe your brother to give you good points. But
yeah,
I do think that it's an interesting task because the New Zealand version was the first version to use 100% original ideas.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a real testament to the people who write the tasks.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, because I think they do a really good job. And I think the New Zealand Taskmaster is quite well liked. And I think, behind the scenes, I think my brother writes some, right? Does he write some? Paul Williams, Joseph Moore, Sam Smith, some other people. They do a good job.
Funnily enough, I don't know if you know this because I don't know how stalked you are of your brother, but he's in a WhatsApp group chat with Alex Horn, David Sundin, and himself.
Who's David Sundin?
The Swedish assistant.
Oh my God. My dream is to be in a group chat with David Sundin.
Yeah. He's also a children's author, so he's a well liked book man. He wrote this book as well. So.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. Wow.
That's the Swedish version of the British Taskmaster book.
Oh,
you complete different tasks.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Like I often think like when I think Taskmaster should be opened up to the public. Like there should be how there was escape rooms everywhere. I reckon it'd be cooler if there was like Taskmaster houses or something like that. We could go and when the show becomes big enough, when it takes over the world, which inevitably will at the rate it's going, they should have Taskmaster houses, at least in England, where the show's quite a hit, and you could go in there and members of the public could do Taskmaster, because I think they'd love that. I think it's better than the escape room.
Well, every so often they do Taskmaster days where they give you a coordinate, you have to find it, and you have to go to this one place, which is normally the football ground near Cheshire United, which is a local football team near when they film the UK version. They get all the fans to join in with the tasks. And then if you go on YouTube and type in fan-made Taskmasters, obviously my videos will come up because I've done compilations of these versions. But if fans in America and around the world have made their own versions of Taskmaster.
Wow. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so with the prize task, now I've got the official points up. You had got 3 points, Brindley got 1 point, Madeline got 2 points, Lee got 4 points, and Angela got 5 points. And so, which sort of helped her, because it meant that she was a little bit further up on the table. But we move on to the first task, which was to hit Paul with a frisbee. Now, was this fun to do because you on TV and because it was his own free will, you got to hit him?
Yeah, I actually don't remember this task at all. Well, I had to hit Paul with a frisbee.
Yeah. See, you ended up alternatively between throwing the frisbee randomly, leaving the frisbee for a search for Paul, before struggling to hit Paul in the tree, but you found Paul.
This is one where Paul was hidden.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So the task is basically find Paul and then throw a frisbee at him when you find him.
Yeah.
You tricked me again. I'm very easily tricked. I'm a very gullible person. Yeah. And this is one that I remember distinctly. I did incredibly badly at this.
You did. You've got out of all the times, you did it the slowest. Well, you must have got the most joy out of it because you.
No, I hated it, man. It was horrible. I went down. He was down by the lake. The New Zealand Taskmaster house is like big, and I ran all the way down to this little like stirring pond of a lake they had, and glanced and decided that he wasn't there, and ran all the way back and kept looking around the house. And in that time, I just didn't look quite to the left where he was sitting in a tree, and so because I missed him there, I had ruled out the lake as being a position where he was. And so I searched everywhere else and I went crazy, and it was horrific. And it was a dark time in my life. Thank you for bringing that up. This is very traumatic.
But was it, because like with brothers, I know for a fact always argue, always squabble, and sometimes, very sometimes, hit each other. So did you enjoy actually hitting him in the end? Or was...
No, not really, to be honest. It was such a miserable task. I don't really enjoy hitting my brother as well. I don't know what sort of family violence trap you're trying to lure me into here. But I don't hit my younger brother. I am a lot physically bigger than him, so it would be bad form.
So Angela initially threw the frisbee before deciding to crawl whilst carrying the frisbee. She found Paul and hit him with a frisbee after 14 minutes and 4 seconds.
Wow.
Which is, it's good, but it does make you look a little bit sad if you're crawling after someone with a frisbee in your mouth.
Yeah.
And then Brindley, who I think she had the best Taskmaster outfit ever, was having a neckerchief, is always useful because you can do so much with it.
Yeah, wow, that's kind of genius. What'd you do with the neckerchief?
Well, she didn't do anything with it in this task. It's just always useful because with Taskmaster, you don't know what's going to happen, and you might need it. You might need it to injure one of your teammates.
Yeah.
Well, initially threw the frisbee before deciding to crawl at her feet again. Which she might have not done, but in my notes I've written down the same thing. So that's very much interesting on my part. But
your knowledge of Taskmaster is genuinely quite impressive. You need to open a museum or something. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. So moving back to Angela, because I'd written down the wrong thing in the wrong order. So Angela initially kicked the frisbee for putting the frisbee down her boiler suit, and then despite finding Paul and hitting him with the frisbee after 19 minutes and 54 seconds, Jeremy decided that Angela was walking whilst holding the frisbee, so she was disqualified from the task, which meant
Wow, so that means I didn't finish last.
no, you at least got 1 point.
Yes.
Yes, because she got no points, Brindley got 4 points, and little old Lee got 3 points, and Madeline got 5. So Lee, alternatively, throwing the frisbee randomly and leaving the frisbee to search for Paul, he found Paul and hit him with the frisbee after 26 minutes and 27 seconds, and that's almost 3 points. Now, Madeline rode a bike because she wanted the exercise, found Paul within 8 minutes and 57 seconds, getting the 5 points, and then decided to just ride off and do more exercise on the mean streets of New Zealand.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, I remember that. I remember that fondly. And oh no, what's the opposite of fondly? I remember that badly.
Well,
I hated that.
Well, the next task is not your strongest thing you've ever done, which was.
Well, what about the last thing I did, which was horrific? Well, the only reason I got a point was because the person below me was disqualified.
Well, before you got when you went for the next task, you had got to and you couldn't get the task out the suitcase because you struggled to open the suitcase.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I couldn't open the suitcase to even read the task.
Yeah, so it was go on a convincing fake holiday.
Oh yeah, I nailed this.
Yeah, but I mean that is one of the most clipped bits from Taskmaster New Zealand. Is you for three whole seconds trying to open the suitcase.
It must have been longer than 3 whole seconds. It took me ages.
Or they cut it down so that you didn't look too much like a fool.
Like I am a fool and deserves to look like a fool. Yeah, I thought it was a trick suitcase and didn't realize that I've never opened a suitcase before. What can I say? I didn't realize there's these little side bits that you click to the side. I mean, man, I was only born in 1987. I don't remember suitcases very well.
Well, your attempt, which was quite good, but was very similar to someone else. But you had gone in a kayak, golfing, had a bit of singing, and uploaded photos to Instagram.
Yeah. So I did trick photography to make it look like I wasn't at the Taskmaster house. It looked like I was at a Christian camp, and I was quite proud of that because it like everyone online thought I'd gone to a Christian camp, and they're like, "That's weird." Didn't know guy was the kind of guy I'd go to Christian camps, but fair play to him. Go hard, man. Enjoy it. Love Jesus.
Well, Madeline did something very similar and took selfies of herself kayaking and posted them on Instagram.
Gutting. So as a result, we both lost us. Were her photos better than mine, or my photos better than hers?
I got to say, I think your photos were slightly better.
Oh, thanks, Tom. You're saying all the right things, man. I appreciate you.
But you funnily enough, you equaled out on points here. You and Madeline both got 1 point.
What?
Yeah. Now, Angela did something that I only wish I came up with. She made a travel vlog. She did it so convincingly, but for a whole minute, I assumed she had bought flights and actually gone on a holiday.
Okay, you're joking, but Angela's was genuinely impressive because she made like a cardboard fake side of a plane and had like wind going past. It was genuinely like that. Angela was elite. I was like, at that point, I was like, oh, Angela deserved to win this thing. She's awesome.
She deserved the 5 points. Lee didn't deserve his points at all because all he did was drove the caravan a few meters or not long from where the starting line where he was and sat in a chair and drank beer. I think you put more effort in than he did.
Yeah. So is that one of the things that Taskmaster is like how much effort you put in is like part of the Like that deserves a higher mark for putting in more effort. Because I thought a better idea, yeah, he put more effort, but like, was his idea better than mine now?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that the production team let him do that because it'll be like a nightmare for insurance if he crashes the car.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty hard to crash a car in an open field, but I take your point. He's a lucky boy. And what did Brindley do?
Well, Brindley did well. She had got in the car and drove to somewhere that I wasn't too sure actually existed or was made up because I don't think I assumed it was like a village, but she went to Bluff or Bluff, spelled BL.
Yeah, that's a real place, but she wouldn't have gone there like that. Bluff is at the bottom of the South Island.
She kept on saying she was going there and got some ice cream, but she actually drove out of the land, out of the plot where the Taskmaster house is. So she had actually drove.
Yeah, well, if she made you think she went to Bluff, then that was a very good bluff on her part, I guess.
It very much was, but I didn't
Oh,
think.
come on, Tom, that was a good pun right there. That was a good pun.
But she only got 3 points. Now, how good looking is Bluff?
I mean, it's pretty good looking. I mean, it's like a waterfront, like rocks, like windy weather. There's a signpost that points to all parts of the world. It's considered to be the very bottom of the South Island. It's a popular tourist attraction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I ever make it to New Zealand, I'll make sure I get down there.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, man. There's plenty of more exciting places to go before you can come to New Zealand.
And so the third task, you should work on the tourist board. Uh, so the third task was a psychological task in a sense, psychological in your sense, but this was the greatest thing I think you've ever done, which was
Oh, cheers, man.
paint the Taskmaster like a 5-year-old.
Yes.
Now, what was your memory of that task? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved talking to a 5-year-old, and I loved everything about it. I thought it was really good. But where it went bad was that I didn't think. I remember being annoyed afterwards, going, obviously, a 5-year-old wouldn't know who the Taskmaster is, what's going on. I didn't realize how young I'm not very good with kids. I didn't know how young a 5-year-old was. But if you wanted to paint the Taskmaster like a 5-year-old, you draw like a picture of the sun or a picture of a house or something like that, because a 5-year-old wouldn't even think. They wouldn't even listen to the instructions, you know? So I drew a bad, cartoony picture of the Taskmaster, not thinking that a 5-year-old won't even draw a picture of a man, you know?
Well, I was speaking. I don't know if you would class him as a 5-year-old, but Lee decided to draw Paul, not knowing that Jeremy was the Taskmaster. Not well. You got 3 points. Neil, you got 1 point.
Yeah. Manly had a great battle for last place. It was thrilling stuff.
And so Angela, who got the full 5 points, used her left hand and managed to find out that the 5-year-old was painting strawberries. So she painted a circle with an arc over it, and she managed to be successfully convinced Jeremy. Very well.
Wow. How did she find out that the 5-year-old was painting strawberries?
She'd actually asked the 5-year-old, "What were you painting?" And she said strawberries.
Oh, it's so funny. I can now see why kids say the kids Taskmaster will be a hit, right? Because kids they say the darndest things.
They do, as the saying goes. So you failed to convince Jeremy. Angela successfully did it. Brindley failed to convince Jeremy. Lee, he failed to convince Jeremy, and so did Madeline. So it was an all-round. I think it was a good, because the first series had some really amazing tasks. Like I've got the tune with the song he sang. I can't remember the exact country, but because I've got it in my head, I've got the tune, but I can't think the name.
Libya.
That's it. Because that was really good. Because it was the only one where you didn't stop singing it, even once the VT had finished rolling.
Well, can I let you in on a bit of behind the scenes there? is that was one where I'm like, hey, I'm doing quite well here for a great song. It's a song and it's a song about Libya or whatever. Like, I don't have many abilities in this life, but one of my abilities is to write straight bangers. They call me the Adele of New Zealand, right? And it was just a tricky thing where I did not realize at this point. This was like the first or second day. I didn't realize that Taskmaster was actually timed and like taken seriously. So I'm used to doing TV where you eat things all the time, and so like the time finishes. Who cares? Let's get a good clip of Guy doing his song and then edit that in for the most enjoyable show.
Yeah.
But nah, it was just like I prepped it up. I was ready to go. I was just like, this whole, because here's the thing though. This is why I thought it was bullshit. And this is one of the reasons I had a frustrating experience on Taskmaster. They're like, write a song. You've got an hour. Great. And then you're writing a song. But while you're writing the song and doing the creative process, you don't just have an hour, because in that time, they'll like reschedule the cameras or they'll like move things around. So they'll take your time, but they're not really stopping the clock or anything like that. So it was so casual when we're doing that shoot that I thought, okay, great. We've got a song now. We've put in the work. It's time to deliver it. And so when Paul said time's up, it was so incredibly frustrating. And maybe it wasn't even time's up. Maybe he was just doing it to screw with me. I'm not sure. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, we're resetting the cameras. There's all this stuff. Let's just get a good version of the song and let's move on. And I found that genuinely frustrating that like they would kind of stick to the rules, but kind of not. And I just kind of thought, oh, what the fuck this show? Like it was genuinely quite annoying to be like, great, I've done my song, I've done the task. Let's record it well, let's shoot it interestingly and make the best TV show possible. But like Taskmaster apparently is supposed to stick to some very, very vague rules, which don't even matter anyway, because the judging seems kind of arbitrary. I found that, I'm going to be honest with you, quite a little bit of a frustrating experience, because in my mind, I'm like, you should just do the funniest thing and try and like make the best show possible. But in saying that though, maybe interrupting me and telling me my time's up and seeing me get angry was the funniest thing.
Yeah. And I think the reason why New Zealand Taskmaster worked is because because panel shows, because this is the genre it's in, because panel shows aren't always successful in every country because of the style of comedy, but because you already had other successful panel shows such as 7 Days, you have you been paying attention, because their formats work and because the public are used to panel shows. I think this is why this series was one, because they had really good comedians on it, and every series is always amazing comedians, and because of the dynamic between Jeremy and Paul like get better and better each episode and each series. It works so well because they've all been convinced that a panel show does work here, not just in Britain, which even though panel shows origin in America and they don't really work in America anymore, it works really well in New Zealand. That's why the American Taskmaster failed.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I'll say another thing though is I think a lot of it comes down to the strength of the task. So I think that's the funnest part and the biggest skill of Taskmaster is coming up with good tasks. And I've always suggested a few to Paul. I don't know if any of my ideas have come through, but like, I think it's like that's the real element, is like a good task. I reckon, as I said, I reckon you should get people off the street to do them, because they really do challenge you in an interesting way. And Taskmaster, I think the charm of Taskmaster is it shows people's brains and creativity working in different ways, which is really fun and really funny.
And now, you mentioned there that you give some ideas for your tasks to Paul. You could become, in the UK, because Alex is friendly with a comedian called Tim Key, who was in the very first series, and because Alex and Tim are friends, Tim got a role in the Taskmaster world, which he doesn't really do much. He's called the task consultant, where Alex comes up with a task and he's not 100% sure whether or not it'll work. He'll go for a beer or a coffee or somewhere and have a conversation and sit around with his friend and just ask him, do you reckon this works? And he'll go, yes, it does work. I think you should be Paul's task consultant.
Yeah, I think I should be as well. Next time you see Paul, tell him, get Guy a job, especially if it involves a little Bunsen burner, a little bit of money earner, whatever David Brent says.
And so the live tasks on this series have always been amazing. It's sculpt the third most impressive dog. You all did.
I love that.
You all
That's
did
a very funny idea for a task, right?
yeah. Are you a good sculptor, just generally?
No, I've never sculpted since I was a little kid. Definitely not. I wish I was. Like, it's something I'd love. Just something I've never really had much of a go at.
Yeah. And the task worked incredibly well. And so with the point system for that, Lee was the only one that got points. The rest of you got nothing. And so it was a down to like who had the third best, and I think Lee had the third best, and no one else won.
Oh yeah, okay. So there's just one winner, and everyone else is the loser.
With live tasks, you don't really have if the task doesn't require a ranking system, it normally just has one person will win the full 5 points.
Wow. Here's the thing. I'm still, even if I went on Taskmaster now, with all the knowledge that I have after doing a season, I would still probably not know many of the elements of Taskmaster.
Well, the episode winner was the one and only Lee Hart.
Wow. Yeah, clap to that. Well done, Lee.
Yeah. So he is, well, as we've discovered, he didn't entirely deserve some of the points in the episode.
Wow.
More points than you got given.
Yes, I think so.
But if Paul is watching, because I think Paul might still be in the gang of watching these, please go on. Please create a New Zealand version of the official podcast where you can regret some of the decisions that have been made during the first series.
Yeah, wow. Is that what happens on the Taskmaster UK official podcast?
Well, they get like other comedians who are fans of it or ex-contestants talk through episode, and then they go, "Well, I would have given him this point," and then Ed Gamble, who was a contestant, would go, "Well, I think they should have got that point, but I see where Greg's coming from, but I also disagree." And then they get really scared when Greg David comes on, because then they don't want to upset him because he's portraying this like evil archetype monster.
Yeah, wow. Well, tell me this. It's really interesting that you don't enjoy sports, but you enjoy Taskmaster, which in my mind is like a type of sports.
I do see what you mean, but I don't think I would go to a stadium and go, "There's only one Paul Williams."
That's a good bit. That's a good bit, Tom. You're right. I reckon you might. I reckon you might. If you were in a stadium full of other Taskmaster fans, I reckon that'd be a good time.
I mean, that would work really well. I think if we were in a room with Paul Williams, I think anyone would have a great time, no matter where you are.
Yeah, that's I've had a good point there, eh, Tom? A stadium status live Taskmaster, it'd be unbelievable.
That would be amazing, because Taskmaster originated in the Edinburgh Fringe. So Alex Horn set 25 comedians a tasks over a selection amount of months. He set one task, which was to send the best present through the post. Now, sadly, because the Edinburgh Fringe is in August, and he sent the task in like January, Mike Wozniak made him a sculpture out of ice, but it melted by the time he got to him. So by the time it came to the live show, he got no points because it had melted and he wasn't in existence anymore. And the Daily Mail, not the Daily Mail, the Royal Mail were apologising for the inconvenience of the parcel being destroyed.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. They shouldn't apologise. Like, mailing an ice sculpture seems like a very silly thing to do.
Well, we come down to the end of the podcast, and a section of this podcast of the interview, might I Riyadh, the section of this interview, which only applies to New Zealand contestants and New Zealand. This is a section where I witter on for a few seconds on why I'm obsessed with New Zealand, because I have confessions to always make, because I always think it's interesting to know that, and I'm not ever going to repeat it out loud because I don't want to embarrass myself or get it wrong, but I know off by heart a selection of some of the Maori bits from the national anthem, because I've heard it so many times. I've got it saved on the Photos app on my phone.
Wait. This is so confusing, Tom. So let me get this straight. You've memorized some parts of the Māori verse of the New Zealand national anthem.
Yeah.
And you've got it saved on the Photos app on your phone.
Correct.
Why are you obsessed with the? This is so. I love it.
But
And
Taskmaster New
kia
Zealand.
ora.
It's Taskmaster New Zealand that made me obsessed with New Zealand.
Yeah. Oh. So you just love New Zealand, and the Māori anthem is really tickled your fancy.
Yeah, well, it's one of the best. One I think it's top 10. I'm also once Duolingo sorts itself out, I'm trying to learn Maori.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, you're off to a bad start because it's pronounced Māori, I think. So I think you're like. I mean, don't ask me. I'm just a white guy, but or Pakeha is what we call white guys. But like, yeah, that your pronunciation of the word Māori is the first place to start. Okay, amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and then when I used to do my college radio before they got rid of it, one of the things I did, and don't ask me why I did it because it's like the worst thing to attempt to do on radio at 7 p.m. when no one's really listening because it's pre-recorded. I played the New Zealand version of the telephone song. Yeah,
Wow. Okay. Wow.
I liked it. I got to whenever I wanted to the radio station because I played "Abide with Me," which isn't a good song to be playing. But it's repetitive, the song, as you know. Um, but it goes on for quite some time. So
Tom, you're losing me. You're losing me on so many levels. You can learn Māori, just like they don't have Duolingo, but maybe there will be other ways you can learn Māori and stuff like that. If you want to do it, it's cool.
I did find I found an app, not sponsored, but called Memorize. That's a good one. Or the book.
Yeah.
The book you can buy for Audible. That's 29 hours.
Wow. What is it you love about New Zealand?
I just think it's just everything really. I don't think there's. I think it's because the comedians are all really funny. The Taskmaster New Zealand amazing, and it's the furthest place from the UK. We googled this because if you're really upset with someone, you can ship them off to New Zealand because it's the furthest place.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing, man. Well, on behalf of New Zealand, kia ora, and thank you for your lovely love of our country. Okay. Where would you like to visit if you came to New Zealand?
Well, I would visit Auckland because it's A, the most popular, and B, the more TV shows are filmed in Auckland. Like let's say I think bits of What Do We Do in the Shadows film was filmed there. Wellington Paranormal.
Yeah, no, that's filmed in Wellington, obviously.
That's in Wellington, but it's featured in What Do We Do in the Shadows.
So I'll say this right now, that is a terrible choice. Auckland is going to be one of the worst places to visit as a tourist in New Zealand. I would say that's very low on the list of places to go.
Well, the only thing that really annoys me about Google Earth to in New Zealand is that they've put a tree in front of the Taskmaster New Zealand house. You can't actually find the exact location because there's a massive tree in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you came to New Zealand, I'm sure someone could take you to the Taskmaster New Zealand house, maybe. But, yeah, I was like, Auckland has got to be like, it will disappoint you. Like the place where the Taskmaster house is quite nicely. It's out in the countryside a little bit, which is lovely. Did you hear that there was flooding and that the bridge that goes to the house was washed away, and so they had like disruptions to the season because the flooding was so bad? Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about this.
Maybe I shouldn't be telling anyone that, but everyone knows there was flooding in Auckland, really bad flooding if you Google it. And yeah, there's one bridge going to the Taskmaster house, and the bridge was washed away, so they almost had to cancel the season. Luckily, I've heard that since they literally took like a goat track on quad bikes to get the contestants in, and I believe they're filming season 4 at the moment, I think.
That is correct because he announced the lineup because Ray O'Leary and the woman that's in Wellington Paranormal, and I can't think of her name in the moment, they're both...
Karen O'Leary, ironically, not related.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, are they related? But they're not. But they're in it. And not Madeline. They see it's Thingy Bracewell.
Melanie Bracewell.
That's it. See, Melanie Bracewell from the Cheap Seats, which is another good program. She's going to be on the series as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah. What's really cool about you is in New Zealand, you get a lot of people who are like obsessed with British culture. You seem to be obsessed with New Zealand culture, which is really cool. It's like a reversal.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me interview you. It's been a joy and a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's very therapeutic and good for my mental health. Get yourself checked.
And thank you guys for watching. Now, with more interviews from Memoir, stay tuned for the date of the 13th of June, because something might be happening. Woo! And check that week anyway on the Tom Mason YouTube channel, because then we'll have the full interviews of all the people I interviewed for my Doctor Who documentary, John Comer, the man who was Doctor Who. Now, that's all from me. Remember, keep tasking. Bye. Sorry, Streetley. I am going to steal it from you.
Hello, everyone. Please subscribe to Taskmaster World.